The Persona series has come a long way ever since the release of the original Persona 3 almost 20 years ago. It was then where it started to grow into something more than a sub-series for Shin Megami Tensei. With its innovative life sim elements that complemented its dungeon crawling gameplay, Persona 3 ended up becoming some of the most immersive anime experiences you can find in any PS2 JRPG at the time. And now, after all these years, and with the mainstream success of Persona 5, it's a perfect time to get a remake of the game that changed everything for the Persona franchise. So yeah guys, join us here today for our review of Persona 3 Reload. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more GameMate content. You should also check out the article version of this review that we linked in the description below. The story of Persona 3 Reload stays mostly the same as the original, with you living your day-to-day life, while at the same time investigating the mysteries of Tartarus, which is a tower that seems to emerge at a particular time at night. A phenomenon known as a dark hour occurs where dangerous entities known as shadows start to emerge in the world, and the only way for the player and their allies to fight these things is by using their persona, which is something of a manifestation of one's personality. I am thou art I. After finding out that your character has the ability to summon a persona and experience the Dark Hour, he ends up joining the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad, or more commonly known as SEGA, who also share the capabilities of summoning a persona. The thing is, most people turn into coffins during the Dark Hour, and those that end up conscious during this phenomenon could have their minds eaten by shadows, if they have no means to defend themselves. The victims end up in a vegetative condition known as apathy syndrome. On top of that, your school turns into a giant tower known as Tartarus, which, by the looks of it, definitely looks like a hive of dangerous shadows. So it is up to the members of SEGA to investigate the shadows, Tartarus, and ultimately the truth behind the existence of the Dark Hour. Overall, Reload has less changes to the original when you compare it to the female route that you can find in Persona 3 Portable. One of the bigger changes you can experience in the story is that all of the social links are voiced, something that even Persona 5 didn't consistently have. It makes it a lot easier to sit back and enjoy these hangout events.
Well, she won't be gone long. In the meantime, why don't you keep me company?
It's worth noting that while Persona 3 doesn't really deal with the same social issues as Persona 5 did, it still talks about some very dark subject matter, so it's best to know that going in. They even added some trigger warnings when you boot up the game as well. But overall, the story of Persona 3 is very memorable, and has a cast and tone that's very distinct from Persona 4 and 5. And it's great knowing that this new generation of Persona fans will be able to experience this with modern graphics. Persona 3 Reload has the same feel as the original Persona 3, but with all of the quality of life enhancements introduced in Persona 5. It's actually sort of a deja vu for people who played Persona 3 Portable, because that version of Persona 3 also got the quality of life enhancements that Persona 4 had back in the day. The gameplay loop that made Persona famous is split into two parts, with the first one involving life sim elements as you go by your day-to-day life, and the other one being a dungeon crawler with turn-based combat. You get to decide how you spend your day, whether it be hanging out with friends to deepen your bonds with them, or by engaging in activities to improve your social stats so you can make even more friends in the long run. However, it is during the Dark Hour where you start to engage in combat and exploration. What you do in the day matters in the Dark Hour because you gain access to stronger personas the deeper your relationships are with your friends. This back and forth of strengthening relationships in the day and being a badass exterminator by night becomes an addicting loop of time management, and has always been a key to setting the Persona series apart from other JRPGs. Taking inspiration from the aesthetics of Persona 5, they added more style into the gameplay, making it more fluid and visually appealing. And speaking of inspirations from Persona 5, one of the new quality of life enhancements in this game is this new feature called Shift, which plays very similarly to the baton pass mechanic of Persona 5. So for the newcomers here, whenever you exploit a weakness or deal a critical hit, you'll be given an extra turn. The Shift mechanic allows you to pass that extra turn to an ally instead, making it very useful to exploit various weaknesses. Another new skill in the game are the 3G skills, which incorporates the fusion skills from the original Persona 3. 3G also allows your allies to unleash powerful moves unique to each member.
To put it simply, it synchronizes with the user's emotions, and when the right conditions are met, allows them to unleash an attack of immense power.
But players should also keep note that raising the 3G bar is different for each character. An example of this is Yukari, as her bar fills up a lot faster when she heals and supports the party. so it becomes advantageous to keep track of each character's personality so that you can fill up their 3G bar faster. Fuka, the eventual navigator of the party, also received a lot of gameplay improvements. She can now consume SP, which is this game's version of mana, to be able to activate new abilities, such as buffing up the party before a boss fight, to revealing all of the enemy's elemental affinities. These are welcome changes for her, as she is now able to offer the same level of support as the other navigators of later Persona titles. There aren't really many improvements to the social link system, as it stays true to the original apart from a few dialogue tweaks and adding the fully voiced interaction, which honestly makes it feel a bit dated. Last but definitely not the least when it comes to the new stuff in Persona 3 Reload is that the dorm area seems a lot more fleshed out now, with you being able to hang out with your roommates and engage in various side activities like watching TV or cooking. The visuals for Persona 3 are just amazing, from the way the world looks to the dungeons, and especially the menus, guys. Just like with Persona 5, they outdid themselves with the menus. The graphics are of course a huge improvement and look even better than Persona 5 Royal. The lighting and feel of Tartarus look a lot more distinct now compared to the repetitive design of the original. Those who played the previous versions of Persona 3 would know how samey each of the Tartarus blocks were. Taking a lot of cues from Persona 5, the menu looks absolutely stylish. Much of the tiny details have been stylized, and going through different screens feels satisfying to navigate. I get that menu navigation isn't always like the most important thing when it comes to graphics, but for an RPG like Persona, it makes all the difference in the experience. The vibrant white hues and mellow blues are very relaxing to the eyes, especially coming from the much harsher color schemes of Persona 5. Just seeing everything in its updated glory brings tears to our eyes. But the nostalgia doesn't just come from being able to see P3 again in high definition, but also in seeing how much of the growth of the series as a whole gets to be applied in this remake. It's important for us to talk about the new voice cast, and while they performed exceptionally well, it's understandable that those who are attached to the original will have to get used to some of the newer interpretations. Don't get us wrong, the cast as a whole performed exceptionally well, but there were some differences in direction for some of the characters like Akihiko and Yukari.
Huh? Well, it's sorta like a hobby?
We love Alejandro Saab, but the direction he was made to do for Akihiko feels very distinct from Liam O'Brien's iconic performance in the original.
I've been waiting for this! Let's get in there!
It's amazing for what it is, but it just isn't that dorky but confident Akihiko that we grew attached to.
I've been waiting for this.
Yukari's voice also just doesn't have that sass anymore like she did in the original.
More like Stupe, ace defective.
Either that, or it was a conscious decision by the devs to make her less sassy in this version.
More like Stupe, ace defective.
Well, just like what we said a while ago, the entire cast sounds great, especially the new Mitsuru, which sounds more Mitsuru than ever before, if that makes sense.
So you unlocked it earlier. Très bien.
But it is a nice touch that the older voice casts do make some cameos throughout the game, but you guys will have to find that out for yourselves. If there's one thing Persona always gets right, it's the music. This isn't the first time that a Persona re-release gets some new bops on top of an already legendary soundtrack, so it's not surprising that the new songs are absolute bangers.
I won't miss my chance.
The analysis.
Shall I move to strike? Too late for you now!
We'd be here all day if we went into full detail about the remixed soundtrack, so let's just say it's both fresh and nostalgic like we expected. Hearing that Iwatodai Dorm BGM really brought me back to when I was a kid. And since we're on the topic of sounds, we're just gonna say that the sound of using that evoker is still as addicting as ever. And is still one of the best ways to summon your Persona. Reload brings Persona 3 into the modern era, with stunning visual upgrades, quality of life improvements, and additional character and story elements. It really just shows how far the Persona series has come. It was already hard enough going back to the original Persona 3 after playing Persona 5 Royal, and now after seeing what Reload had to offer, this is for sure the definitive way to experience Persona 3. That's why we're giving Persona 3 Reload a 9.6 out of 10. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe for more GameMate content, and be sure to check out the full review linked below. This is GameMate, signing off.